In this exercise, we're going to be typesetting a short story. We're going to use some new functions in InDesign, including master pages, which is going to allow us to repeat information on multiple pages, and text threading, which is going to allow us to link our columns together for longer pieces of text over multiple pages. So the first step in this exercise is to grab a short story that you want to use. I recommend going to www.classicshorts.com and finding a short story from an author that you like. These are all short stories that are old enough that they're part of the public domain, so you can go ahead and copy the text and use them. I'm using The Pit and the Pendulum by Edgar Allan Poe. The only requirement is that you find a short story that's at least 3,000 words long. So some short stories are really short. Just make sure that that word count is at least at 3,000 so that you have enough text to work with that you can really get the sense of the way these functions are working. So let me go ahead and select the actual text. I'm just going to highlight it and just scroll down to select all of it. There we go. And then I'm going to hit Command C to put it into my clipboard. And then let's go into InDesign. So for this assignment, I want you to work in a 6-inch by 9-inch format. So let's change our unit of measurement to inches, and our width to 6 inches, and our height to 9 inches. Okay, and then we're going to check on facing pages, because we're going to work on this document as if it's in a book. So make sure that that is checked. That's really important. And then for the columns, I'm just going to put one column, because we're going to use a pretty standard layout that is used in like novels, where there's really just one wide column for each page of text. So one column. The gutter actually doesn't matter since I'm working with one column. Then for the margins, I'm going to put 1 inch all around. Okay, that looks good. I'm not going to need bleeds in this case, so I can go ahead and turn those off, or just leave them. It really doesn't matter. Okay, let's click Create. And here's my document. Okay, so if we go into the Pages window, and again, if you're missing that window, you can always go to Window and add it in here. Okay, but in Pages, since we're using facing pages, when I click down here to create new pages, you're going to see that's going to work a little bit different. As I create the pages, instead of them just going straight down, the first one is going to be at the top by itself, and then the rest are going to go side by side. And if you think about the way a book works, that's the way, it's going to happen. And so this makes a lot of sense for the way we're laying this out. Because when you open a book, you're actually looking at the back of the previous page and the front of the next page. So you're looking at a full spread, which is what this is called. So a spread is actually 2 pages in the interior of a book. Okay, so let's undo some of those pages, and let's go over here to our first spread, and then let's go ahead and create a text box for our text. So I'm going to grab our type tool. Let's go ahead and click and drag, and I'm going to just put this type inside of our margins that we created with 1 inch all around. I'm just going to hit Command V to paste our text in. Okay, so here's our story that we pasted, or that we copied from that website. Okay, but obviously the story is not going to fit in this one text box. So what we want to do is continue it in the next text box on the next page, and then have that continue to the next page, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so one thing that you definitely don't want to do is, find the end of the text here and then copy in the next section into the next text box, because obviously that's going to create a lot of issues. Let's say that you later decide to change the font size. Okay, that's going to cause problems, because then you're going to have to move the text to these different boxes. So what we're going to do is what's called creating threads. So threads are going to allow us to link our text boxes together, which is going to allow the text to flow seamlessly between them. Okay, so remember before, whenever we saw this little red symbol down here, that's telling us that we have overset text, which means that we have more text than what can fit in this text box. Okay, so if I actually select this text box and click on that little red dot, you're going to see it's going to load my cursor with some text. This is really similar to when we place text. Okay, that text is linked to my cursor, and when I click and drag, okay, to create a new text box, these threads, or these text boxes, are actually threaded together. So if I delete some text from here, you can see that it's sort of reflowing the text because these text boxes are linked. Go ahead and undo that, because I don't actually want to delete part of my text. but it's good to know that these are threaded together. And a good way to see this is to actually go up to View, and then go down to Extras, and then turn on Show Text Threads. Okay, so if you turn that on, you'll be able to see when I select one of these text boxes that there's a little line going from the out port, that's this little dot over here, to the import of the next text box. Okay, and those out ports and input ports are what is going to connect those text boxes together to create a seamless threading. Okay, so now any changes I make to this, it's going to change the text over here as well, because this is actually one text box. And you can see that if I highlight the text and sort of keep going, okay, it's actually going to show up on the next side because this is all sort of together. Okay, so that's the basics of how text threads work. If I want to break this text thread, I can always come into here and click this little import on this box. And then if I click this again, you can see that the little icon has a little unlink, like a chain that's broken. When I click that, it's going to break that link. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to undo that because I want that to continue and to have that thread. I can also do this onto multiple pages. So again, if I click the outport, which is currently showing me that there is some overset text, okay, it's going to load into the cursor. And actually, since I have this margin set up nicely, I can just kind of click the top corner, and it's actually going to build my text box to be the exact size of that frame. So InDesign is smart enough to know that that's what I want to do in this case. So I just can do that with one click. So let's keep going here. I want to add some pages to this. Okay, so I've just added a few more pages. Let's scroll back up, and then we can continue linking these text threads together. Okay, so I'm going to click here. Let's see, we're linking to the next page. Click here, and then we're going to link to the next page. You can also do this multiple times on one page. So let's say that you're working with columns. In this case, we're not. But let's say that we're doing some kind of document where we were working with columns, but we didn't want to create the columns in the way that we created it with the menu using this function up here. We could actually create those columns manually and thread them together. Okay, and this can come in handy in certain situations if we want like different column heights or we're doing something weird with our columns. This can be a very viable way to work. So just know that this text threading is really powerful, and generally speaking, when you're working with a lot of text, this is how it's going to be done. Okay, so let's undo that extra column because I don't actually want that. And then let's apply a paragraph style to all of our text, because this is actually a little bit big. Right now it's 12-point minion, and 12 points actually really big for a book. Most books are going to be more between like 9 or 10 points. So let's go ahead and select all the text, and I can do that by hitting Command A. And again, since these are all linked, it's actually going to select all the text throughout the entire document, and it's actually going to select all the overset text as well. So when I hit Command A, it's going to select all the text that's hidden underneath that you can't really see right now. And then let's go to our paragraph styles and create a new paragraph style. Okay, so paragraph style 1 is going to pop up. That's the paragraph style we just created. Let's go ahead and edit that, and we'll call that body text. Okay, and let's scale this down. And you can use whatever font you want. I just want you to use something readable. Okay, so totally up to you. In this case, I'm going to choose Chronicle. Okay, and I'm going to use the text grade 1. Then I'm going to scale this down to, let's go down to 9.5 points. Okay, and then for the leading, let's go up a little bit and we'll go to 13. So you want a pretty reasonable relationship between the size and the leading, but totally up to you what type of font you want to use. Just make sure, again, that it's something readable. I don't want a display font or something that's too heavy, because that's not going to be readable for this amount of reading. Okay, so that looks good. Let's click OK. Another thing that we need to take care of, and let me zoom in so that our text isn't greeking. Okay, so another thing we need to take care of is the paragraph breaks, because right now there's not a clear indication of where those next paragraphs are. So there has to be some way to tell that a new paragraph is starting. There's two different ways we can do this. We could either add some extra space every time there's a new paragraph, or we can add some indenting to the first line of each new paragraph. So again, this is up to you which decision you want to make. But if you wanted to go with the extra space, you can go to Indents and Spacing, add some space before or space after to create that extra space between the paragraphs. You want it to be, just a little bit. You don't want it to be too much. Okay, something like that. In my case, I actually want to use indenting, so I'm going to use this first line indent. And I'm just going to up that value and just put a little bit of an indent. Again, you don't want this to be too large. It should just be a few characters in size, just big enough so that you can see where those new paragraphs are. Okay, that looks good, and that's going to give me enough of an indication of that new paragraph. All right, looks great. Let's go ahead and continue threading our text, okay, because we're still hitting the end of our text box, and there's still some overset text. So let's keep threading this through. We can click on this, and let's keep going until we have all of our text threaded. We're going to need to add some more pages here. There we go. Okay, we got a little bit more to do. Oops, and I accidentally inserted my pages in the wrong spot. So let me undo that and make sure I'm at the end so that I'm inputting them in the right place. All right, and now you can see that there's actually no overset character here. So this is actually the end of the text. So finally hit the end of the text, and now I don't need the rest of these extra pages. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete those, and I can do that in my pages panel. Just go ahead and delete those. There we go. And now I want to do a quick check to make sure there's no widows. And widows are a typographic error where there's a word on its own at the end of a paragraph. Okay, so this is close to being a widow, but since there's two words here, it's and enemies, this is not considered a widow, so we're okay there. Let's keep going through our type to search out any situations where that's happening. Okay, so this is an example of a typographic widow, and again, since there's just one word, execution on its own, that is something that we need to fix. Okay, so in order to do that, we can bring the word its down so that it's next to execution. We can do that with a soft return. Okay, so if I hit shift return instead of just regular return, that's going to bring that word down without creating a new paragraph. Okay, so that's what's called a discretionary line break. It's going to allow us to bring that word down but not create a whole new paragraph. If I undo that and instead just use a regular return, okay, now I'm creating a new paragraph, which is not what I want because that's creating this indent. It thinks it's a new paragraph. So it's using the same style that we would use at the beginning of a paragraph. Okay, so shift return is what we're going to want to use to bring that word down. Okay, so take the time to go through your whole document and make sure you don't have any widows. Here's another widow. Okay, and this one's actually a little bit more tricky because we have this kind of all caps here. And, you know, if I wanted to bring two words down, destroying and crescent, it's going to create a little bit of an issue. Okay, so if I shift return right here, okay, now I fix this widow, but there's a big gap over here that feels very unnatural. Okay, so in order to kind of make this a little bit more natural, one thing we can do is create some other line breaks earlier on to kind of bring more words down to fill up this line. So for instance, maybe we want to bring the word of down, so I'll shift return there. We can bring the word the down, and that caused possibility to break. Okay, we can put another line return for the word the, and then another line break for the word seemed. Okay, so now you can see I'm just sort of bringing a few extra words down. Let's bring possibility down as well. And now it just feels a little bit more natural compared to when there was that huge gap over there. Okay, so that is the kind of thing that you need to do to fix widows. So definitely take the time to go through and make sure you don't have any widows in your document. All right, so last thing I want to talk about is master pages. Okay, so master pages are a way to create design elements that are going to sit on every page. Okay, so up in the pages panel at the very top, we have this area that is for editing our master pages. You can see by default there's something called the A master. Okay, and anything that's placed in the A master is going to populate on any of the pages that have the letter A in them in the actual pages panel. So you can see all these pages right now have this little A. If I hover over it, it says A master applied. Okay, so what that means is if I double click on the A master itself, so I'm going to double click on this page. Okay, now I'm in this special zone and I'm actually editing that A master. So let's say I go in here and just put like a big circle in here. Okay. Now when I go back to these pages, you can see all of them have that circle. And I can't actually edit that circle. Okay, that circle is not something I can select. And that's because it's being added through the A master. And so it's not something that's actually editable on the pages themselves. It's being applied from that A master section. So if I want to remove that circle, I actually have to go back and remove it in our A master. Okay, so if I delete that, then you can see that it's going to disappear on all those pages. So that's how the master pages work. And you can also create new master pages. Okay, so if I go up to this masters section and create some new pages, and I can resize this to see everything I'm doing. So I created a B master and a C master. Okay, this B master and C master I can now apply to these different spreads. Okay, so let's apply the B master to these pages. Okay, so now if I go to my A master and I make a circle, okay, it's going to show up on these pages because these are A pages. But if I go to page 4 and 5, which are B pages, it's not going to be there because the B master doesn't have a circle on it. So basically, it's going to inherit any of the information that's on that master page into the spread itself. You can also assign master pages to other master pages. So maybe I want the B master to actually be assigned from the A master. Okay, so I can drag these pages over to the B master. And now when I'm editing the B master, okay, which is what I'm doing right now, I can't actually select the circle because that circle is there because of the fact that it's on the A master. And the B master is actually getting that information from the A master. Okay, so once again, if I go to the A master page, delete that circle, it's going to disappear from the B master. It's also going to disappear from all of these pages. That's because these pages are assigned those master pages. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete all these extra master pages that we don't need. In this case, we just need the A master. So let's go ahead and delete those. Okay, I'm going to click OK. And let's also go back and assign the A master to page 4 and 5 because we want those to be A masters as well. So I can just drag that page to the left side, drag this page to the right side. Okay, now those are A masters. And what I want to do in the A master is add our page numbers. Okay, because if you think about the way novels work, it's usually a page number over here and a page number over here. Okay, and we want those page numbers to show up on all the different pages. Okay, and we don't want to have to manually put them in. So if we go in here and make a text box and manually put the page numbers on each page, it's going to take a long time, especially if we're creating a really long book. So the A master is going to help us do that. So once again, let's double click on the page in the A master. That's going to bring us into the A master editing page. And click W to bring up our frames over here. And then let's create a text box. And I'm actually going to just make this text box the same width as the text frame over here. And I'm going to center it. Okay, and let's give this a new paragraph style. We don't want this paragraph style to be body text, so I'm going to actually undo that and just create a new paragraph style. And we'll call this page number. All right, and let's make this chronicle. I'll make it nice and small, maybe 8. And let's actually we'll make it bold. Actually, we'll make it semi-bold. Okay, there we go. And, let's also make that centered. Okay, so in the paragraph styles, we can go down to indents and spacing and align it to the center. There we go. So now it's center aligned. So, obviously if we put a number in here like page 15, and let's go ahead and bring this down a little bit as well. Okay. So if I put a page number in there and go back to my pages, okay, now all of these say 15. That's not exactly what I want, obviously, because, I don't want every page to be page 15. I want this to change depending on the actual page number involved. Okay, so let's go back to the A master by double clicking. And instead of putting 15, I'm going to put my cursor in here and right click. And then I'm going to go down to insert special character and over to markers. Okay, and I'm going to put current page number. Okay, so when I do that, it's going to put an A here. And the reason for that is this is a variable. Right now it's saying A because we're actually on the A master. So A is technically the page for the A master. So let's go ahead and delete 15. Okay, and then when I go back to my pages, you can see that it's going to put number 3 for page 3, number 5 for page 5, and etc. Okay, so now that's a variable that's going to auto-populate based on the page numbers in our pages panel over here. Okay, and then let's go back to A master because we also want to put one over here. So let's just copy this. I'm going to hold down shift to keep it nice and aligned. I'm going to center it to this page. There we go. So now there's a page number over here, a page number over here. And if I go back to my document and hit W, you can see that my page numbers are auto-populating, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so that looks good. All right. And the last thing we want to do is just put in our title page. Okay, so let's say for our title page, maybe we don't want our page number to show up. Maybe we do, but just for, to show you an example, let's go ahead and remove this. Okay, so right now this is A, so it has our page number there. If we want to delete our page number, it's not going to allow us to select that. So instead what we want to do is just drag this thing that says none and drag it over to that page. Okay, so now this doesn't have an A over here, and so the page number is not going to show up because there's no master page being assigned to that first page. Okay, so let's use this page as our title area. Let me go back to our short story. Okay, and let me scroll back up, and let's just go ahead and copy. Oops, didn't want to click on that. Let's go ahead and copy our title and then our author and the year. Okay, so let's copy that in using Command C. And then let's go ahead and put a text box in here and paste that in. Currently, this is our regular text style. So let's go ahead and assign a new paragraph style of basic paragraph and then create a new paragraph style. Okay, and we can call this title. Let's make this some other font. Maybe I'll make this Gotham. Okay, and I'll make it a bit bigger. Okay, and again, I can put a shift return in here to bring that next line down. And then let's make a new paragraph style for Edgar Allan Poe. I don't want that to be so big, so let's go ahead and make a new paragraph style. We'll call this author. And I could have this be based on the title, but I think in this case, I'll just have it be based on nothing. Okay, so let's turn our size down a little bit for that. And maybe go to Chronicle. And let's use semi-bold italic. There we go. Okay, and we'll put a little bit of space before on this one as well to just sort of bring it down. There we go. And I'll hit a shift return in here to just put our date. Okay, and we could even style this a little bit further. Like maybe, for instance, we want to keep the by as sort of italic, and then the author name could potentially go like bold. Okay, so you could get a little bit more specific in here about how this gets styled. That's up to you, but in the case of this demo, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. Okay, so there's our title name. Let's make our title just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go into title. Can increase that just a bit, and we'll reduce our leading a little bit. And let's also put a nice little line under there. So I'm going to go to paragraph rules. Let's go to rule below, turn that on. Okay, and then let's increase the weight a little bit. We'll use offset to bring that down, and then we'll use right indent to just put a nice little separator line in between those two. There we go. And I think a little bit more space after as well. Okay, there we go. So now we have our title page, and then we have all of our text pages. So this is good to go. Just, again, make sure that you fix all those widows. I didn't actually do that in this document, but you just need to make sure that those all get fixed. And then let's also just go down and check to make sure that our text isn't being cut off. It isn't, because we don't have that little overset text indicator over there. So that's good to go. So the last thing we need to do is just export this. So let's go up to File, down to Export, and we're going to export this as an interactive PDF. Okay, so give it whatever name is appropriate. And then let's go ahead and export this as spreads. Okay, so this is a little bit different than what we've been doing before. It's going to actually export the two pages together. Okay, so let's click on that. And we'll view after exporting so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so now when you export it, you're going to see that the spreads are going to export together. So if you're doing some sort of digital publication, a lot of times you're going to want to export it as spreads so that you can actually see all the information on the spread side by side. Okay, so that's how we're doing that in this case, and this is ready to turn in.